Yields back, Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very rarely I'm at a loss of words or know where to start. And I want to start with you, Ms. Angela Underwood-Jacobs, and just say that you have my condolences, my sympathy, and my prayers. And unfortunately, this was the hearing you were invited to. You were not invited to the hearings where in Homeland Security we talk about the threat to our law enforcement officers that put on blue and black every day. The fact that we tried to get more vests for police officers and the other side fought it. The fact that we wanted to fight sovereign citizens that's killed more police officers in this country than anybody else and the other side fought it. But they invited you to this hearing, and I just want you to know that we have fought for increased survivor benefits for the families of officers, and we respect those who serve our communities. And then, Mr. Floyd, Falonis, let me just tell you that when I met with you in Houston and your family, the remarkable thing is you all asked for two things, neither of which was for you. Justice for George and a just society. And that's why we're here today. And the unfortunate part is, in this process, we speak and we leave. But there's one thing that I want to address. Mr. Buck came and said that it was politicians that has messed up the family unit in America. That could somewhat be true. But for him, how do you ignore the white man's knee on the neck of black people for 401 years and act like that has nothing to do with where we are? But part of the reason why I am so encouraged today is more people are recognizing that now. And the systematic racism and oppression that has existed, that we're now coming together to fight and establish a solution. It was Dr. King in his letter from a Birmingham jail that he actually responded to his critics for the first time, because he said that he would assume they were people of goodwill with sincere concerns. Over my better judgment, I will assume the other side is people of goodwill and sincere concern in some of these arguments why we can't or shouldn't pass this bill. But the other part I want you all to understand is the outrage that I have. Because it was 1988 at 91, when the movie Boys in the Hood came out. And the last line in the movie said either they don't know, they don't show, or they don't care what happens in the hood. Well, if you didn't know, now you know. Because the protesters, the peaceful protesters out there are showing you what's happening. Video footage is showing us what's happening. So then you go to the last line, and the real question is, do we care? And I believe that this piece of legislation is a good piece of legislation that moves the ball forward. It is very easy to sit on the other side and let perfection be the enemy of the good, or just sit back with inertia and we never move the ball forward. We have an obligation to the next generation of kids, to men and women walking the streets now, to make sure we move the ball forward. You know, every once in a while, we've tried it the other way all this time. We're just asking you to try it our way this time. Let's pass some legislation. Let's hold the bad police officers accountable. And we always say bad apples. Well, the saying is enough bad apples spoil a bunch. So let's make sure that we're talking about it. Mr. Mayor, in 30 seconds, and I know I used up all the time, I was a beneficiary of your reforms. And what you did was you moved some resources from a constitutional police department that you created to after-school funding and things that the community can do better than police. 20 seconds. Can you explain that? And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The disinvestment in those types of programs over the last 20 years, and some of it's happened in this Congress. the elimination of a summer youth employment program, the elimination of supports for children. Baltimore City, no extracurricular activities in any of the schools. So we can fix policing with this, and we need to do some other things to address those other systemic issues. And you're right, I moved $1 million the first 30 days I was in office from police overtime to create a summer jobs program because there was no money. And the summer jobs program and the camps for kids and the outdoor camps for inner city kids that didn't cost a dime, that gave kids, a person like you, a chance to work at LSU Dental School. Those made great differences. And part of this conversation about, quote unquote, don't want to open a Pandora's box, defunding police is really not about defunding police. It's about funding other things that have been ignored and forgotten, investing in young people and youth. You're a middle-class parent in America today. Your kid wants to go to dance class, you pay. Karate, pay. Little League Baseball, pay. Inner city kid, no opportunity if it's not provided by the public dollars. You go back to 1950s and 60s in America when immigrants made up the vast majority, European immigrants made up the vast majority of major American cities, and you had free recreation programs and free summer camps. And on our watch, as these cities have changed, somehow, some way, a lot of that has gone away. So we're there trying to patch together dollars and patch together work. So it's important to understand this bill is about reforming policing, which is a pillar. There's a separate discussion and an additional discussion that needs to be had about how we do all the other things. And I want to work with you all on that, but don't confuse the two. I mean, that's the thing. People want to confuse the two. And just I'll say respectfully, bad family situation didn't kill George Floyd. Sir, that's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage to think that a bad family, I am tired of trying to change the issue when we have police brutality and police misconduct to this rhetoric about bad family situations. It's an insult, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. I sit, I take it, I listen, but not at this moment. Not at this time. Let's fix policing in America. Let's focus on that. There's ample time to do other things. As I said earlier, it's a moral moment. It's time for that. We're called to act. Yes, figure out a way to do it in a bipartisan way. But go back and look. On the other side of this Capitol, there are 2 office buildings named for United States senators, both of whom have a legacy of what we're talking about today. One is Richard B. Russell, a man who led the filibuster against the anti-lynching law for decades. The other, Everett McKinley Dirksen, a Republican from Illinois who provided the courage to help President Johnson pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's the moment we're in.
The gentleman yields back.